Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. This is the New King James Version. Therefore we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight, the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. I'm only going to tell you this once. Look to your neighbor and say, neighbor, drop it like it's hot. I know some of you are going to do it anyway after the service, so I might as well just give it to you up front. You may be seated. Now, God, if you would please let the words of my mouth and meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, God. You are my strength and my redeemer. And all of God's people say it. It is interesting. It is interesting how we end years and start other years as if there's a magic wand at midnight that magically erases everything from the previous year. We start fresh, new ideas, new year, new me, all of the things that we come up with, hoping that the new year will be better and different than the previous year. And what we find is that sometimes we can be in our excitement of starting the year, and 2 weeks later into January, we're back to our old ways.
All right. Come on, preacher.
And I hope that 2019 will not be that for you. I hope 2019 won't just be an extension of 2018 that's carried over, good or bad. I'm believing, God, that 2019 is going to be the best year of our life. There's no sense in coming tonight. There's no sense in celebrating. There's no sense in being here all hyped up and excited if you believe that the next year is going to be just as the same as this year. We ought to be believing that it's going to be better. So with that, the author of Hebrews gives us some information to help us to understand how it is that our year can be better than it was right now. It's a quick glance of the book of Hebrews. The theme of the book is better than. Somebody say better than. If ever you want to know anything about the comparisons that the author is making between religion or angels or Melchizedek or any other thing, what the author is trying to suggest is that Jesus Christ is better than the Old Testament system, better than the order of Melchizedek, better than the angels, better than anything or any previous issue that has come our way. The author wants us to leave the book thinking and feeling that there's a superiority of trusting Christ that is better than anything else that we can experience. The author presumably is Paul, but there's some debate about that, so I won't say for certain that it was him. But we do know that the author had this in mind, this whole notion of comparing Christ one to something else and Christ coming out ahead every single time. When we get to verse number 1, I want you to look at it with me. I need you to keep your Bible open. As a matter of fact, I want you to see it because I want you to understand how this is going to help us to go into next year. And as I say that, I'm laughing to myself because somebody is going to ask the question, what did the pastor preach on tonight? Drop it like it's hot? Hebrews 12:1, the first word that we find in the verse, and I tell you all the time, is that you got to read scripture slow. You want to get a full understanding and study. What we're going to do over the year is read it from a cursory perspective, just to be familiar, but when you really want to study it, you got to slow down. So verse 1 says, the first word is therefore. And anytime you know the word therefore, then you understand that that is a connecting word. It is a connecting word to illustrate that there was something that was previously mentioned that is now being included in the current conversation. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, well, we need to figure out, well, what is the author talking about in order to make sense of what he just said. So you can't make sense of what he just said in chapter 12, verse 1 until you first go back to chapter 11. I need you to go back to chapter 11 for a moment. I want you to see some things in the verse, in the chapter, that can help you understand what the author is saying. What the author is saying in chapter 11, if you know anything about scriptures, then you know Hebrews chapter 11 is commonly known as the faith chapter. It is the chapter that describes to us what faith is and why it is that we should hold on to it for dear life. Hebrews 11:1, if you have it with you, you will see where it says, and we know, the saints know when we talk about faith, that's what we talk about. If I were to ask you what faith is, most of you go to Hebrews 11:1, and y'all say it with confidence too. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. In other words, faith is believing in what you don't see as if you already see it. That's what faith is. Faith is trusting that I have something in my possession even though I don't have it in my possession yet. But I see it in the spirit realm that it will come in the natural realm. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So watch this. What the author does then is give a list of a hall of fame of people in the Old Testament. This cloud of witnesses that give us an indication of who in the Old Testament was a demonstration of faith. And every time he does it, he uses the words by faith and then gives the name. Let's go through the chapter real quick, shall we? Verse number 4, he says, by faith Abel did something. Verse 5, he says, by faith Enoch did something. Verse 7, he says, by faith Noah did something. Verse 8, it says, by faith Abraham did something. Verse 11, it says, by faith Sarah did something. Verse 17, he goes back to Abraham again. By faith Abraham again did something because he was known as the father of our faith. Verse 20, he says, by faith Isaac did something. Verse 21, by faith Jacob did something. Y'all see where we're going here? Verse 22, by faith Joseph did something. Verses 23 and 24, by faith Moses did something. In other words, you can't get into the chapter unless you did something by faith. And what I'm trying to get you to understand is that 2019 will not be any better than 2018 unless you learn how to live by faith. In other words, faith is this: I don't have it yet, I don't know how I'm going to get it yet, but I'm going to praise him like I already got it. That's what faith is. Faith is a celebration in advance, in anticipation of what God has yet to do. And this is why when you come to church, you don't come to church praising him just for what you have. You got to learn how to praise him for what has yet to come, because you see it by faith and trust by faith that God's going to do it. So I'm just going to ask the question: if you believe that God is going to do something in 2019 that's better than what he did in 2018, then by faith somebody give him a praise that suggests that you already have it. Because ain't no sense in coming tonight if you don't believe by faith that 2019 is going to be any different. Then I believe by faith that lives are going to be changed. I believe by faith that's going to be my best year financially. I believe by faith that my family is going to be turned around. Who want to give God praise on the faith of what you are believing God to do? Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, the 10 that I just gave you in chapter 11. And this is an illustration of being in a stadium and we're running the track. And the people are in the stands cheering us on as we continue to run this race that we call life. Now, the author gave cloud of witnesses, which means that these individuals have gone on to glory. But I still believe that there are some witnesses still living that can testify to the grace and and the mercies of God. Let me do a check of the room. If you got a diagnosis this year and God healed your body, somebody give God a praise in here. If you had financial difficulty and God pulled you out and you got your bills paid and you didn't miss a meal and everything was fine, give God praise. If God blessed you with something and you didn't have the credit nor the desire nor the door to be able to get it, but you got it anyway, somebody give God praise. If you are in here tonight because you know that God did for you what nobody else could do for you, somebody give him. Yeah, I need you to give him praise right now for somebody on your row, somebody that still didn't catch it, somebody that still didn't get it, somebody that still don't know the power of God and what God does for your life. Your testimony tonight will be, if you only knew what God did for me this year, you would be on your feet too. Because everything that we do is by what? By faith. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, who are these witnesses? The 10 that I gave you in chapter 11 that demonstrate the faith chapter. But watch this. We don't always need to rely on people that have gone on. Guess what? We got some witnesses in the room. And this is why your testimony is important. This is why your story is important. This is why you got to tell people what's going on, because maybe somebody came in here sick and they just heard the David story testimony and they said if God could heal them, they could heal my body too. Do y'all understand? This is why it's important. So watch what he says. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, if we want to make 2019 better than 2018, now the author gives us some instructions, all in verse number 1. He gives us 3 things, really, all in verse number 1. I can't even get out of verse 1, let alone verse 2. This is what he says. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, the first thing that you got to do if you want to make 2019 better than 2018 is that you got to lay aside not some weights, not a few weights, but the key word is every. Weights are the hindrances that slow us down. Weights are the heaviness that we feel that maybe others can't see. But it's the heaviness that we wake up with and that we carry. Now, if you're looking at me in physical form, you could see me standing straight up. But perhaps some of you don't look like that in spirit realm. If we could see you in spirit realm, you might not be standing upright like this. In spirit realm, some of you are literally walking like this. And the reason why you're walking like this is because all of this year, you've been carrying something that is too heavy for you to bear. And the challenge is that you don't know where to lay it, and you don't want nobody to know that you have it. And you've been spending nights trying to figure out how to get it off you. But for the most part, this is what you look like in spirit realm. Reverend Nichols, come up here real quick. I want to show you something. Minister Underwood, come up here real quick. I need y'all to do it quick because we short on time. Come on up here quick. I want to show you. I want y'all to do an exercise to show the people how they look. Come on up here. Come on up here. Come on up here. Come on up here. Now, here's what I want y'all to do. We got 2 sumo wrestlers up here. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, sir. I feel right up in here. I want y'all to bend over like I'm doing there. I want y'all to bend over, Reverend. There you go. Minister Underwood, I want you to start from over there. Start from over there. Stay bent over. Reverend Nichols, I want you to start over there. Over there. Now, stay bent. Stay bent. Now, I want y'all to greet each other like that. Go walk over to each other. The reason why this might be funny now is because they're bent over physically, but guess what? This is exactly how most of us look sometimes to come into church. And the reason why it's hard to see God is because spiritually the weight is so heavy, it's forcing you to look down. How can I see God when I got all this pressure? How can I feel God when I got all this weight? How do I see God when I got all these things going on in my space that don't nobody understand and nobody's willing to help me with? And may I suggest to you that what the author of Hebrews is saying is this, is that in order for 2019 to be better than 2018, notice what he didn't say. He didn't say God was going to take it off. Look at it right there. He says, therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, that responsibility is on. There are some hindrances that you got to get rid of. There are some weights that you got to leave here tonight. There are some weights that you are carrying that prevent you from being all that you can be, because guess what? You have chosen to take on more than you're supposed to. Who told you you were Superman or Superwoman? Who told you you had to carry the weight of your whole family? Who told you you had to be the decision maker for everything? Who told you you had to have all the answers? And so this is what we look like in spirit. And then we try to come in here and give God praise. Hallelujah. Get him a hand before they fall over. Come on, we thank God for them. They did a great job. Your back hurting? Your back hurting? You straight? Love y'all, man. Notice what the author says. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, if you want 2019 to be better than 2018, the first thing you got to do is think about the things that slow you down spiritually. Because small things over time add up to be big things. And if you carry it long enough, don't you understand that problems have cousins? It would be easy for me to carry the weight of one issue. But normally we don't deal with one issue at a time. We deal with 3, 4, 5, 6 at a time. And this is what causes us in the spirit realm to look like this. Arms out, head down. Can't see the glory of God. Watch this. Not only are we to lay aside that's the key term, every weight, but then the author says, and the sin that so easily ensnares us. God, I might preach this in 2020. I don't care how saved you are. You can do cartwheels around here. Everybody got one. And that one could be a person, a place, or a thing. You laugh because it just came to your mind, all right? And isn't it interesting that you could be so strong in every other area until that phone call comes. Till you drive past that space. Till that thing shows up. I don't care how spiritual you are. Everybody in here has one thing that gets the best of you. Now, what's interesting in the text is not only do we each have one thing that gets the best of us, but what the author also says, if you look at the text, is he says, let us lay aside every weight, and this is why you got to read the Bible slow. He says, and the sin. If he said a sin, then a sin would mean a multitude of choices. But because he said, and the sin, that means that there is a common challenge that all of us have, no matter how saved we are. And even though all of us have individual things that get the best of us, there is still one thing that challenges all of us consistently. Well, what is that, Pastor? Well, in light of what he just mentioned in chapter 11, the sin that sometimes gets the best of us, all of us, is the sin of unbelief. Isn't it interesting that you can believe God for healing, but can't believe God for your family? And faith is circumstantial. It's not consistent across the board. And this is what we got to put to rest in order for God to get the glory in my life. If I can believe God for a job, then I ought to believe God for every other facet of my life and not be so consumed that God can do it in one space and can't do it in the other. And the truth of the matter is, we're like that person in the Bible sometimes where we say, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief. That there's just a space in our life that sometimes gets the best of us and causes us to not trust like we ought to. And here's what God is saying. If you want 2019 to be better than 2018, that even in that space that you wrestle with, that you wonder, will God do it? The answer is yes. And my question is there anything too hard for God? Maybe you got to pray on it a little longer. Maybe you got to be a little bit more patient. Maybe you just got to wait just a little bit longer. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not. I want to talk to some real saints tonight who really want to make a difference in the next year and not just hyped up about new year, new me, but you really want to make a difference. I dare you right now to put that thing on your mind, that you wrestled with God, believing that God could do it, and you know what it is. I don't have to tell you because you've been wrestling with it all year. God, will you really do it? God, are you going to do it? God, when will you do it? And I just want to believe that you can go by faith and trust that God will do it. And if you believe that, I need you right now to give God a praise that says, God, I believe. No more doubt next year. No more wondering next year. No more getting up trying to figure out how you gonna do it. God, I know you gonna do it. I just know it's in your time. I know it's in your space. I know it's gonna be when you say so. So until then, I'm gonna praise you and give you glory. I need you to give God a 5-second. Come on, Devon. I feel the glory coming up. I believe it now. I was on the fence at first, wavering back and forth. But God, I know now, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you can do it. And if you believe that, let's leave 2018 with strong faith, believing that God's going to do it. We're going to drop weariness like it's hot. We're going to drop worrying like it's hot. We're going to drop anxiety like it's hot. We're going to drop low self-esteem like it's hot. Let everything that have breath come on and praise the Lord. If you got some things that you got to get rid of, things that you got to let go, things that's been holding you back, things that's been causing you to be shy, give God your best, because we're going into 2019 with my best praise, with my best worship, with my best praying, with my best testimony. Devil, you should have took me out this year, but since I'm still alive, I got more I'm gonna give. Is there anybody here that believes that? If so, give him your best. Anybody tired of holding the weight? Tired of the baggage on your back? Tired of worrying about stuff you can't fix? Give it to God and let God take care of it. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside the heaviness and the weight and the sin of unbelief that easily traps us and gets the best of us. And here's the last part, and then we're going to pray. Then he said, and let us run. Let us run. But here's the key. Let us run with. Let us run with endurance. Let me give you a quick testimony, and we'll be on our way. So as you know, I do cycling now because my knees won't let me play ball like that no more. And so I cycle, and last year, 17, I attempted to do a 100-mile bike event. And I failed. Mile 82. Body said, Swann, you're done. You ain't Lance Armstrong. Sit down somewhere. You're done. I had it on my bucket list to say I was going to finish because I wanted to make sure that I finished the race. So this year, I entered again. Before I went to the race, I changed some things up before I did it. And I'm able to say, by the grace of God, this time, I finished. If you were to ask me, what was the difference between the first time that you did it and the second time, I talked to a cyclist who had finished the race before, and I said, how do you finish these races? And they said that the first thing you got to realize is you can't start too fast. Because if you go all out in the first 20 miles, you ain't going to have nothing left when there's 80 to go. And I thought about that, and I said, you know what, that's exactly what I did the first time. I was so excited about being in a race. I'm going all out, passing people, wondering why y'all riding so slow. Cruising. And guess what happened? When I got to 82, them same ones passed by me. Didn't even stop to ask me if I was all right. Just wave. We'll see you at the finish line. And here is what the Lord brought back to my memory for this sermon. He said, Swann, that's how a lot of people start their year. You start your year on fire. You start your year starting in January. You got all these lists and resolutions and things that you want to do, and you start your year on fire. You go full bore. And by the time you get to October, somebody asks you how you doing. Child, I'm tired. Why are you tired? Because sometimes we don't learn the value of pace. See, the author said we are to run with endurance. When you run with endurance, you understand that there's a pace that you got to run with, and you stay at that pace. You don't get too high, and you don't get too low. You stay at that pace because you know you got a long way to go. 2019 is going to be a long year, not necessarily in a bad way. It's just what it is. There's going to be some good in 2019. Keep your pace. There's going to be some disappointment in 2019. Keep your pace. There's going to be some testimonies that come in 2019. Keep your pace. There's going to be some disappointment and some despair and some confusion in 2019. But what should you do? And because you keep your pace, that means I don't get too high. I don't get too low. When I'm going through hard times, I remind myself, this ain't the first time I've been broke. When I go to the doctor, this ain't the first time I've been sick. When I'm having issues at home, this ain't the first time I've had issues at the house. And the way you keep your pace when you're going through situations and you get a cramp, the way you keep your pace is you learn to just be steady. And this is why reading your word helps you to be steady. When those moments come and you have difficulties and situations and the cramps of life come and you feel like you got something in your side, it's the word that reminds you the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid. When I go through difficult times and people are telling me all kinds of stuff of what I can and can't do, I'm keeping my pace because the word says I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. When I come into church on Sunday or even New Year's Eve and I come in tired and I don't feel like giving God praise, let me reflect back over my life and look at where God has brought me over the years. Let me look at what he did all of 2018. And the truth of the matter is this: when I think about all of this year, the truth is some of us should be dead by now. Some of us should be in the grave by now. Some of us shouldn't be in this room tonight. And if you think I didn't come to give God the best praise leading out of 2018 into 2019, you got another thing coming up. That's how you keep your pace. Because when I think about the goodness of Jesus and all that he's done for me, do I have any people that want to give him one last praise in 2018? Because I'm running my race with endurance. I'm looking down the line. I'm looking at what he did for me in January. Look at how he kept me in February. Look at how the enemy tried to get me in March. Look at how I avoided it in April. Look at how I stood the test in June. And by the time I get to December, I can look back over the year and say, devil, I took your best shot, but I'm still here by the grace of God. I need you to give him one last 2018. I made it. I'm here. I survived. I gave God praise because he's been